Welcome, Grade 4s, to WorksheetCloud.com's online lessons. I hope that you are well, warm, and snug as we are about to get into this lesson this morning. So, without any further ado, let's get started. Grade 4s, if you have any questions about this lesson or any of my other lessons, please send an email to grade4@worksheetcloud.com. and we'll get back to you as soon as we can after this lesson. Today's lesson is going to be on a diary entry. And so we're going to learn about writing in a diary. We're going to learn about what the format of a diary entry is, because this is one of the writing pieces that you're going to be required to write either for an informal assessment or a formal assessment sometime during this year. The lesson outline for today. We're going to have some inspiration, okay? Getting to know our articles. And no, Grade 4s, it is not a newspaper article. It is the type of articles you get in our parts of speech. So please remember, when I'm saying getting to know our articles, I'm talking about the part of speech and not of newspaper articles or magazine articles. What is a diary entry? The format of a diary entry, and I have some things that I would really like you to remember. Some inspiration. So this morning I was thinking, what could I possibly inspire you with, Grade 4s? And then it clicked to me that we had one of the best leaders in the world. We had someone that was able to inspire generations and generations of people. And I thought, I should actually go with this man. And I'm sure you guessed it, Grade 4s, Nelson Mandela. And he said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Now, that quote is probably one of the world's most popular quotes because it is the truth. In order to change the world, we need to educate ourselves. We need to learn. We need to use information. And that is the way we can start changing ourselves and changing the world. And then I thought this is a perfect quote for today's lesson, or for any kind of lesson in the matter of fact, because we are talking about learning, education. That is what we are doing here at WorksheetCloud, trying to educate you, trying to help you learn more about English, natural science, mathematics. And we want you to be able to master those skills. And once you do, you pass the grade, you pass the phase, and so on and so on. And education empowers you to do that. So, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Remember that. And whenever you think of giving up, when you don't feel like going to school or you don't feel like doing your subjects, remember this quote, Grade 4s, because this quote is going to remind you that there's always a reason to educate yourself. There's always a reason to learn more. And you never stop learning. I hope that inspired you somewhat, because now we are going to go into our lesson. Getting to know our articles. Like I said in the introduction, Grade 4s, we are not talking about a newspaper article or a magazine article. We are talking about the two types of articles that we get in our parts of speech. One being a definite article, and I'm sure you guys know already what a definite article is, because normally when we do our sentence a day, I always use a definite article in those sentences. But for those of you that are still a bit confused about articles, I'm going to go through it with you now. A definite article is the. There is no other definite article. The is the only definite article that we have. This refers to something specific. For example, Jane won the dancing competition. So it wasn't any dancing competition or one of the dancing competitions. It was the dancing competition, and it's speaking about a specific one. Now you'll see a difference when we learn about our other article, because in our other articles, they actually refer to any kind of thing. So let's see. An indefinite article, there are two, and that is a or an. This does not refer to anything specific. So there is a parking space open. So no, they're not telling us which parking space is open. They are just saying a parking space, which means it could be any one. And that is what the difference between a definite article is and an indefinite article. Because a definite article refers to the parking space, the one that I am pointing to. A parking space can be any of the parking spaces that are in the parking lot. So that is the difference between the two. And when we are looking at indefinite articles, we have a and an. A we place before a consonant. So if I say a parking space, P is a consonant, and therefore I will use the letter A. But if I had to say a apple, we don't say a apple, we say an apple because it starts with a vowel, okay? An apple, an orange, okay? An octopus, those words that start with a vowel, we use the word an in front of when we're referring to it. Now remember, this one does not refer to anything specific. However, the does. I'm going to give you another example. Book. I want to read a book. That means it can be any book. Okay, it can be Harry Potter, it can be about the Avengers, any book. But if I want to say I want to read the book, I am referring to the one book that I am looking at or I am referring to. I hope that made sense, grade 4. So that's how we got to know our articles. What is a diary entry? Before I get into the diary entry, I am going to move out of your way because we are now going to learn about the diary entry and it's going to come over here. So, what is a diary entry? A diary is a book where you can record your experiences, thoughts, and feelings. So, a diary entry is obviously one of the entries in your diary book, in the book itself, okay? So an entry is when you on the date and you are writing in how you're feeling for that specific date. The diary itself is a book. It can also be referred to as a journal. So sometimes grade 4s you would hear people saying, I'm writing it in my journal. They are actually referring to a diary. You can even name your diary because it's something personal and it belongs to you. So you can name your diary, for example, like Anne Frank, and that is one of a very, very popular diary, Anne Frank, the Diary of Anne Frank, okay? And she named her diary Kitty. So if you want to get yourself a diary and name it, that would be pretty cool. You write in your diary daily to make a personal recording of your day's events and your feelings about those events. So the diary is something personal that belongs to you. You are writing about your feelings and what happened during your day. And it's important that you make these recordings and you date it and you write the day there so that when you look back, you can actually say to yourself, oh my word, this is how I felt on this day. I'm going to share with you a little bit about my diary, okay? So when I was very young, I used to write diaries all the time. Now that I'm older, I tend not to write in a diary, but I record it on the laptop because you can also do that. You can use your iPad or tablet or laptop or a book to use for a diary. But when I was younger, I used to use a diary. And a few years later, when I was older, I found this diary. And in the diary, I wrote the worst day of my life. And when I read this worst day of my life, I thought to myself, wow, as a young person, this really bothered me. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about that at the end of this lesson. So let's first get done with the format and how to write a diary entry, and then I will give you exactly what the worst day of my life it was when I was much younger. Okay. The format of a diary. So I have placed a diary entry on the screen, grade 4, so that you can see what the diary entry could look like for those of you that are not quite sure. So as you can see, I started it off with Dear Diary and I have a date. Now you can also write the day in there. So I could have said the 12th of May, or I could say Friday, 12th of May, 2018. So that will give me a clear indication of the day, because sometimes even though the date is there, we still forget that which day it was, and knowing which day it was sometimes helps us remember the event more clearly. It is a warm day today. The clouds are around, but they are hiding. I feel like hiding. My mom and dad told me that I cannot go out to my friends. I feel so upset because I was looking forward to spending time with my BFF, Jamie. Now I have to wait until next Saturday, which is in 7 days from now. I just wish I could go out. From Jane. So Jane is feeling pretty upset today because her parents are not allowing her to go out to her friends. So she's recording this in her diary and she's writing about what happened, why it happened, and her feelings about what happened. And that is what a diary is, recording of your feelings and experiences. So in the format of this diary entry, we're going to look at what diary entries have to have. Remember, grade 4s, when you are writing your diary entry, you can write that it's a personal experience for yourself. But when we are looking at the assessment part of it, it's important for us to follow the exact format of the diary entry. So we need to look at the day and the date. Now I did not place the day in here. I just placed the date. You can place the day so it helps you remember more clearly. A diary entry is written in the first person. Why? Because you are writing about yourself. If I was writing a diary entry, I couldn't say, Nicole said it was a warm day because Nicole felt sad. Grade 4s, that wouldn't make sense. So it's important that we start in the first person by looking at I, my, okay? That is indicating that I'm writing from first person narration. It's in the present tense because you're writing about how you're feeling and what happened on the day. So it's written in present tense, okay? Remember, feelings come up as the day goes on or as you living each moment, each day. So it's important for when you are writing your diary entry to record those feelings as it's happening, okay? We use emotive language. Emotive language describes emotions, okay? So in this diary entry, Jane's saying how upset she is because she cannot go out with her friends, because she really wanted to spend time with her BFF, which stands for best friend forever, Jamie. And now because she can't do that, she's expressing her emotion in this diary entry. And then, of course, we have our ending from Jane. Now, sometimes you don't have to put the ending in the grade 4s, but because you are almost like you're speaking to a person, you want to say goodbye because we already started off with Dear Diary. That's like our greeting. Hello. And then we want to say goodbye. Let me explain to you now about the diary and the reasons for writing a diary entry. sometimes you have to remember that when you want to talk to someone, it can be a bit difficult. So diary entry allows you to express your emotion to a book. And it's almost like this book becomes your friend, which is why you can name it. So it becomes your friend, and you can now talk to your friend about how bad or how great something is going at a certain time. Please remember the format of a diary entry, because that is going to be important once you start your diary or journal. Things to remember. Writing short paragraphs. Remember, a diary entry is not a story, okay? It's not a narrative essay or a descriptive essay. It's your life story. It's about you, your personal experiences. So try and keep it short. Try and keep it as emotive as possible, so that we can really see, or you can really see, how you felt on that day. It is personal. Remember, grade fours, please don't try and copy or mimic someone else. This diary entries is about you and yourself, your feelings, your experiences. Diaries or journals help you to be creative and build on your writing skills. So now some of you are thinking, okay, since it's my writing, I can just write however I want. But punctuation is key always, because the more you write, the better you get at it. So once you start your diary entry, try as far as possible to write in proper punctuation or grammar, so that you can build on your creative and writing skills. It is about your own personal experiences and feelings. So don't try not steer clear of writing about other people's feelings, because it's about you and your reflection of yourself. You can use drawings and sketches. So if you want to express yourself by drawing a picture or referring to a picture in your diary entry, do it. Remember, it's your own personal reflection for yourself. And lastly, the power of a diary is in its truth. Why would I say that? When we are writing a diary entry, we are writing something that's coming from inside of us. I cannot make up something about that. It is not a descriptive or a narrative essay or a fable. Okay? It is real, literal experiences that I or you are having, and we are writing it in our diaries. So when I write it, I should not make up stories and say, oh, something happened that didn't happen. Because remember, the power of a diary is in the truth, in the sincerity of it. So I hope that makes sense to you, grade fours. So you can send any questions about this lesson to grade4 at WorksheetCloud.com. An activity is provided for you after this lesson. And I know, grade fours, I made a promise, so I'm going to stick to it. When I was quite young, I think I could have possibly been about 10 or 11 years old, I wrote in a diary. And I started it by saying, "Dear diary, this is the worst day of my life. I used my grandmother's pen, and I can't find it. It's her favorite pen. And if I don't find this pen, she's going to be so mad at me. I can't believe I was so silly. How could I lose my grandmother's pen? This is the worst day of my life." Grade fours, that was not the worst day of my life. And that's what makes it funny, is because when I was that age, on that day, that is how I felt. Needless to say, grade fours, I found my granny's pen, and she was very, very happy, but she never even knew it was missing. So sometimes we exaggerate our feelings quite a bit when we are writing in our diaries, but that's what makes it special, because it's about how we feel, and no one can take that away from us. Some person might have told me, but that cannot be the worst day of your life. I mean, really, it's a pen. But at that moment, that was how I felt. As crazy or as silly as it was, that was how I felt. And I wrote it down. So I hope that inspires you to start a diary and write down your feelings And remember, maybe in a few years' time, you'll read it back and go, wow, this is exactly how I was feeling that time. Interesting. So, as I end this lesson, and I hope you enjoyed it, the power is in education. I'm going to bring it back to Nelson Mandela's quote that you remember there is power in education. And never forget that, grade fours. Have a wonderful day further. From me, Miss Frank, goodbye.